So, welcome to the 3-drop card review with Dew. Let's hop on in. We are going to do the same format we've been doing so far with neutral monsters. We are going to do all of the soulbound cards first, then all of the craftable cards second. So, let's get started. First off, Dalaran Mage. He is a 3-drop 1/4 with spell damage +1. He's crap. There's better ways to attain spell damage. He won't trade very well with anything. The only plus side is that your opponent will probably ignore him because of how useless he is. So if you want spell damage that will never be dealt with, there you go. Yeah. He's not good. Don't use him. Next up, Ironforge Rifleman. He is a 3-drop 2/2 with a battle cry of deal 1 damage. Not that great. You sacrifice 1 attack. Like, even if he were a 2-drop, let's say, you sacrifice 1 attack in order to gain an instant 1 damage. So he's still effectively like a 3/2 for 1 turn and then a 2/2 for the rest of the game. That's not even that great for a 2-drop, let alone a 3-drop, so I can't imagine him being that great in just about any deck. So, again, not that great of a card. It's actually a pretty common thing with most of the 3-drop neutral soulbounds. Most of these cards are not that good. Ironforge Grizzly, a 3-mana 3/3 with taunt. Yeah, he's alright. For having taunt, his stats don't suffer terribly. Being a 3/3 is pretty typical of a 3-drop. But yeah. I don't know, he isn't run in most decks because there are better 3-drops out there. That being said, still not a terrible card for starter decks, but there's better 3-drops out there. So yeah, he's not absolute trash, but once you get better cards, you'll have better cards. They exist, they're out there. Yeah. Next up, Magma Rager, a 3-mana 5/1. He sucks. He has 1 health for a 3-drop. That means a mage could kill him this turn he's summoned with the hero power. So could a druid, so could a rogue. Yeah. Those guys all gain an instant 1 damage off their hero power. And pretty much every other class is a way to deal 1 damage fairly easily. So, Magma Rager is not good at all. No. He's worse than the Ironforge. He's worse than just about any other card in the game. I don't know what in the world would ever prompt you to use him. He sucks. Next up, Razorfen Hunter, a 3-mana 2/3 with a battle cry of summon a 1/1 boar. That's what the boar looks like right here. So, there's your boar. This effectively makes Razorfen Hunter a 3-mana 3/4, but split up between 2 cards. Razorfen Hunter's not a terrible card, especially for a 3-drop, but there's again better cards out there that you can get. So yeah, not a bad card to run at first, but all in all, again, there's better 3-drops, kind of like the Ironforge Grizzly, you know? Not bad for a soulbound, but there's better. So, yeah, that's that. I'll get rid of Tusker here. And then, Shattered Sun Cleric. A 3-mana 3/2 with a battle cry, give a friendly minion +1/+1. This makes Shattered Sun Cleric a 3-drop 4/3, assuming you have another minion to buff. So, this card's actually pretty good for a 3-drop, just in general. Those are really high stats for a 3-drop. That's what you want to see out of them. Out of 2-drops, 3/2s are good. Out of 3-drops, 4/3s are excellent. So, Shattered Sun Cleric is definitely an above-average 3-drop, and for a soulbound, I don't think there is a single other soulbound 3-drop that I would more recommend to put in a deck than Shattered Sun Cleric. So, there you go. Really good 3-drop. Next up, Silverback Patriarch, 3-mana 1/4 beast with taunt. You might as well just run the Grizzly. I mean, it's a beast as well, and being a 3/3 instead of a 1/4 just gives you so much more, gives you a much greater range of options in terms of trading with other cards. Yes, this guy will take a little bit more punishment than the Iron Fur, but his attack suffers way too much for it, so Silverback Patriarch, not all that good. Don't use him. Just don't. Next up, Wolf Rider. A 3-mana 3/1 with charge. He's not actually terribly bad because of the charge. It's basically, 3 mana to deal 3 damage. So, yeah, not bad. It's okay in aggro decks. I wouldn't recommend it in like a control deck because, he's not going to stay on the field. The whole point is to play him and get off 3 damage wherever you want to. So, yeah. Not, an outstanding 3-drop, but not bad either. 3 mana for 3 damage. Decent. Especially if, somehow he survives the trade. I don't know. And your opponent has to... I don't know. Yeah, 3 mana for 3 damage. Not bad. So that's it for the Soulbounds, I think. Did I miss anything? Yes, I did. Raid Leader. He's a 3 mana 2/2, who gives all your other minions +1 attack. Not good. I know it seems like he has a lot of potential, but the stats just straight up suck. And, yeah, your opponent should be able to trade with him. And just get him off the field. I mean, it's not like he has health high enough to make him a difficult target to remove. Almost every class has a very easy way to deal 2 damage. So, actually I can't think of a class that doesn't have a perfectly good answer for this. I guess Hunter wouldn't, but they've got creatures and stuff. Yeah. No, he's just too easy to deal with. He's not worth it. And did I miss anything else? Because I'm so prone to doing that. Okay, no I did not. Therefore, let's go into crafting mode, and we'll start with the, I don't know, crafted or non-soulbound 3 mana neutral creatures. We've got Acolyte of Pain. He's a 3 mana 1/3. His text says whenever this minion takes damage, draw a card. Acolyte of Pain can be situationally good. In a mage deck, for example, where you can actually just ping him to deal 1 damage to, the Acolyte. At the very worst, this guy will trade 1 for 1 in any deck, because him being destroyed will let his owner draw a card. At best, he'll draw you 3 cards before he dies, so even though the stats seem bad, he's actually pretty useful for card draw. Not necessarily useful as a minion, but again, for card draw, he's pretty useful. So, yeah, Acolyte of Pain is actually surprisingly good, especially in mage decks. So, yep. Next up, Alarmobot, a 3 mana 0/3. His text reads, at the start of your turn, swap this minion with a random one in your hand. It is noteworthy. When Alarmobot drags out that minion, the battle cry on that minion will not be triggered. So, for example, you drag out, use something we've already done. Youthful Brewmaster. You won't have to bounce something from the field back to your hand. It'll just drag him out as a 3/2. Or, perhaps the funniest combo ever is when this guy drags out a Deathwing. He's a dragon with a battle cry, destroy all other minions and discard your hand. But he is a 12/12. If you can get this guy to drag out a Deathwing by turn 4, and the text doesn't trigger because of that, your opponent's basically done. Unless they have like a Shadow Word Death. But, that being said, Alarmobot is still very reliant on RNG to drag certain minions out of your hand, and because it is at the start of your turn, it means your opponent has 1 turn to deal with it, and even if they're trading minions with it, this won't trade back into those minions. It just kind of creates a 3 health target for him to take out. So, I mean, it's basically just a card that will say, restore 3 health, and there's other creatures out there that can do that. We'll actually hit a 3-drop that does exactly that. So, while Alarmobot has potential, he doesn't have enough potential to make him worth playing. I don't recommend playing him. Next up, Arcane Golem, a 3-mana 4/2 with charge. His battle cry is give your opponent a mana crystal. No, it is not an empty mana crystal, but it doesn't matter even if it were, because, you know, on your opponent's turn it would fill up. So, while it is 3 mana to deal 4 damage, and it has 2 health, so it could potentially survive a very light trade, giving your opponent that kind of mana advantage is just not good at all. So, it depends. He works well in certain rush decks, but don't use him just for damage. This guy, when he is played in rush decks like that, has to be used as kind of a finisher, or later in the game when giving your opponent mana won't matter as much. So, all in all, I don't like him, but I'm a priest player who doesn't play rush decks, so, you know, I'm a little biased. Next up, Blood Knight. He's a 3-mana 3/3 with a battle cry, all minions lose Divine Shield. Gain +3/+3 for each shield lost. So, he's got a lot of potential, especially because eliminating Divine Shields is pretty nice. You know, it'll block any source of damage once. This will just wipe them out and buff himself up. So, he's also especially useful in rush decks that like to use Divine Shield creatures. Yeah. His stats are still good enough to make him playable as a 3-drop, even if you don't absorb any Divine Shields. So all in all, he's actually a pretty good 3-drop. And, yeah. That's Blood Knight. That being said, he is very expensive. So, yeah. I don't know. Next up, Cold Light Oracle. He is a Murloc. Hate Murlocs. He costs 3 mana. He's a 2/2 with a battle cry of each player draws 2 cards. It's, I guess, usable in a deck that doesn't have very much card draw at all, but since it draws your opponent cards as well, and is just a 2/2, it's really not that great of a card, and I don't really recommend running it at all, unless your deck desperately needs card draw. So, yeah. Yeah. I don't like him. Next up, Cold Light Seer. He is a 3-mana 2/3 Murloc, with the battle cry of give all other Murlocs +2 health. Good in Murloc decks, not good in non-Murloc decks. So, that's about it. That describes just about every Murloc out there anyway. So, yeah. It's a Murloc, what do you know? Next up, Demolisher. He's a 3-mana 1/4. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. This effectively makes him a 3-mana 3/4, but he won't do as well trading with creatures. So, I don't know. Demolisher has some potential, especially because that 2 damage being distributed isn't affected by taunt, but I don't like to play him because he's based on RNG, but Demolisher does have a lot of potential, and there are decks that can make this work. That being said, yeah, it's just, he's not one of my more favorite cards, so, Next up, Earthen Ring Farseer, a 3-mana 3/3 with a battle cry of restore 3 health. I absolutely love this card, but that's because I'm a priest, and I've probably seen just about every scenario where this card can have tons of value. That being said, he's basically an Alarmobot combined with a 3/3, so, because he will restore 3 health, not because he'll drag creatures out onto the field. But yeah, pretty good creature. Just, most decks won't have good ways to heal up anyway. Like, rogues aren't known for healing, neither are warriors or warlocks and those kind of classes. So he provides a pretty decent amount of healing in addition to being a 3/3 as a 3-drop, so his stats don't suffer that much for granting healing. So, yeah, good card. Good card. Next up, Emperor Cobra, a 3-mana 2/3 with the text of destroy any minion damaged by this minion. This makes Cobra have a lot of potential for trading up into higher, up into larger creatures, but that being said, most decks have a way to answer that. He's basically just a target that your opponent will really try to eliminate. And since he has 3 health and 2 attack, most 2-drops run these days will be able to trade with him. So if you play him earlier in the game, you run the risk of having your opponent trade with 2-drops, or if you play him later in the game, you know, your opponent could have spells to answer it. So, yeah. I don't know. Cobra's got a lot of potential, but he just never really achieves it, in my experience. So, you don't have to take my word for it. You're welcome to experiment with him yourself, but I don't like him all that much. He's got potential, but eh. Yeah. You guys will notice I'll be saying that a lot, but eh. Next up, Flesheating Ghoul. He is a 3-mana 2/3 who gains +1 attack whenever a minion dies. The Ghoul, kind of like the Cobra, has a lot of potential, but again, your opponent should be able to answer it, since it only has 3 health. It would usually be used in a rush deck that'll just kind of throw minions away willy-nilly to buff this guy up and deal damage. But, yeah, again, Ghoul has potential. I don't like him all that much, but he's not a bad card. Not great, but not bad. Next up, Harvest Golem, a 3-mana 2/3 with a death rattle of summon a 2/1 damaged golem. That'd be that guy right there. And this basically turns Harvest Golem into a 4/4 split up over 2 cards, and they can't both be dealt with at the same time. So, yeah. He's a pretty good 3-drop, honestly. He's one of the best 3-drops that the game has to offer. So, 3-mana 4/4, what more could you ask, you know? Yeah. Next up, Imp Master, a 3-mana 1/5 with a text of, at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to this minion and summon a 1/1 Imp. That guy. So, Imp Master has a lot of potential in rush decks, especially when comboed with like Flesheating Ghoul. That being said, Imp Master also combos well with the Earthen Ring Farseer we went over earlier. Because if you can heal the Imp Master, you can get a lot of imps out of it. That being said, the Imp Master isn't likely to trade all that well. But you know, at the very worst, because you will end your turn at least once with having this card, it is a 3-mana 2/5, and that's not that bad for a 3-mana card, so yeah, Imp Master's surprisingly good, but board clear's very effective against it as well. So, leave it up to you guys if you want to use that or not, but yeah, has potential. Has potential. Next up, Injured Blade Master. He's a 3-mana 4/7 with a battle cry of deal 4 damage to himself. This effectively makes him a 4/3 coming into the game. When comboed with Earthen Ring Farseer, he can do well. He also does well in Priest decks because, you know, Priest can heal him. And effectively he can become the equivalent of a 5-mana Chillwind Yeti. So, yeah, I don't know. He has a lot of potential in Priest decks. Other decks won't tend to run him because, yeah, he just is effectively a 4/3 in other decks. So, Priest decks, use this. If you're not a Priest, I might find a better card to use. Next up, Jungle Panther, a 3-mana 4/2 beast with stealth. This means that your opponent likely will not be able to deal with the Panther when you summon it. Since most 2-damage forms of AoE board clear will not be available until turns 4 or 5. So, yeah, he's a pretty good card. Very likely to trade up since your opponent can't really kill him off before he attacks. So, yeah, Jungle Panther's pretty good, especially in Hunter decks that utilize beasts. So, pretty good 3-mana card. Next up, King Moolah. He's a 3-mana 5/5 beast. What? That seems like a massive amount of value out of one card. Well, his battle cry is to give your opponent 2 bananas. At first glance, that seems like, well, whoop-de-doo, my opponent has 2 bananas. What do? This is a banana right here. It is a 1-mana spell with the text, give a minion +1/+1. This means Moolah is actually closer to a 3-mana 3/3, since he gives your opponent the equivalent of a 2/2. So, Moolah can be good, but honestly, I don't like using him, because giving my opponent that kind of versatility to give +2/+2 to creatures, you know, in whichever way he wants, is just not that great an idea. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of Moolah. Especially for being a legendary, he's pretty low value, so, I'm not a Moolah fan. But yeah, that's Moolah. Next up, Mind Control Tech. He's a 3-mana 3/3. His battle cry is, if your opponent has 4 or more minions, take control of 1 at random. He's very good against rush decks because, you know, they'll summon a ton of creatures and you'll randomly steal 1. That being said, don't ever bank on him stealing the best creature. That won't tend to happen. He's also pretty high value in the fact that he's still a 3/3, even if you are forced into playing him when your opponent doesn't have 4 or more creatures on the board. So, Mind Control Tech is pretty good, especially in counter rush decks. So, yeah, that's Mind Control Tech. Next up, Murloc War Leader. He's a 3-mana 3/3 Murloc. Here we go, more Murlocs. All other Murlocs have +2/+1. Yes, this means your opponent's Murlocs as well. However, Murloc decks going up against each other is a very rare occurrence. So, usually you'll play this guy in a Murloc deck, and it will be, assuming you have 2 or more Murlocs on the field, it will basically mean death for your opponent. Yeah. He's an evil Murloc. So, good in Murloc decks, not good otherwise. Same as all Murlocs. Next up, Questing Adventurer. 3-mana 2/2, whenever you play a card, gain +1/+1. He's okay in rogue decks because they can spam cards all at once, but usually when you summon this guy, your opponent will be able to answer him. That being said, your opponent is almost forced into answering immediately when you play a Questing Adventurer, because this guy can get really big otherwise. Yeah, he's not run all that often because, you know, most people will kill him off before he can get too big. And, yeah. That's really it. I mean, he has potential, but he usually gets shut down before he can reach that potential. So, that's him. Raging Worgen, a 3-mana 3/3 with Enrage. Gain Wind Fury and +1 attack. This Worgen is especially good in mage decks because you can just ping him and he becomes a 4/2 with Wind Fury. So he could do potentially 8 damage in 1 turn. So, has high potential in mage decks, otherwise I don't recommend running him. He'll usually just turn into a 3/3 or something like that. Yeah, higher value than average 3-drop, but still not, you know, amazing. But again, good in rush mage decks, if that makes any sense. Next up, Scarlet Crusader, a 3-mana 3/1 with Divine Shield. This means your opponent will have to use probably 2 cards at least to get rid of Scarlet Crusader. 1 card to get rid of the Divine Shield, 1 card to get rid of the Crusader. And since it has 3 attack, it's likely to trade well with whatever tries to kill it. So, pretty good 3-mana card, actually. Yeah. That's about it. Next up, South Sea Captain, a 3-mana 3/3 pirate, who gives all other pirates +1/+1. I don't know what it is with Blizzard, but they tried to kind of give pirates a similar status thing to Murlocs, except pirates only work well in decks that run really weapon heavy, and on top of that, you know, South Sea Captain's really the only guy who majorly buffs other pirates. So, I don't know. He's really not that good. He'll usually just be a 3/3 unless you're running a pirate deck, and I've never seen a successful pirate deck. So, yeah, Blizzard tried to make pirates a thing, and it didn't really seem to work. So, that's what that is. Next up, Tarn Warrior. He's a 3-mana 2/3 with Taunt and Enrage +3 attack. Again, potential in a mage deck, otherwise not that great. His stats suffer for having the Taunt and Enrage, and they suffer too much to make him worth playing. He's worse than an Ironfur Grizzly in most trades. So, yeah. Next up, Thrallmar Farseer. He's a 3-mana 2/3 with Wind Fury. This means he has the potential to be a 3-mana 4/3 at best, but he has to attack twice to get that off. And there are other 3-mana 4/3s that'll only have to attack once to deal that much damage. So, he is not really that good at all. The only exception is in Shaman decks because of Rockbiter Weapon, but you're relying on having that card to combo with the Farseer. So, even in that kind of a deck setting, he's really not that good. So, yeah, I don't recommend using him. Next up, Tink Master Overspark. He's a 3-mana 3/3 legendary card. His battle cry is to transform another minion. Okay, that text reads awkwardly. So I need to clarify this. His text is transform another random minion into a 5/5 Devilsaur or a 1/1 Squirrel. It's not random as far as I know, though. You can actually point and click as to which minion you want to transform. However, the 5/5 Devilsaur or the 1/1 Squirrel is random. You don't get to pick between those two. So, I think Blizzard worded it awkwardly. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something and he got nerfed. He didn't seem OP to me at any point anyway. But, regardless, he's a decent card. Who could effectively be a 3-mana 3/3 and a Polymorph combined. You know, for just 3 mana, which would be pretty insane. On the other hand, you could give your opponent a 5/5, which is also pretty insane. So, yeah, most decks don't run him because I've watched pretty much everyone who uses this have the RNG go against them. Whatever you don't want the, you know, transformation to become, it'll become that. He'll turn whatever you target into what you don't want it to become. So, yeah, that being said, Tink Master Overspark has a lot of potential. I don't like him that much. That's what the squirrel looks like, by the way. Isn't he cute? He's got a big bushy tail. Big old bushy tail. And there's the Devilsaur. Yeah. It is noteworthy that their mana costs are different. The squirrel costs 1 mana and the Devilsaur costs 5, just in case someone bounces them with like a Youthful Brewmaster or something like that. That's noteworthy. But Stinkmaster Overspark, at worst, he's still a 3/3 for 3 mana. If the transformation truly has become transform another random minion, then I would not recommend using him. I haven't used him recently because I just don't, you know, have him, so don't know. Guess that's a mystery I'll have to solve one of these days. But yeah, that's Tinkmaster Overspark. And I guess that's also it for the 3-drop card review. So, thank you guys for watching the card review, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.